On this week's episode of Top of the List, in the wake of some of our favorite shows on Netflix being announced to come back soon, we'll take you through some of our favorite shows that have been on the streaming service. Stay tuned to find out what's on Top of the List.
Welcome back to this week's episode of Top of the List. Ryan and I are going to be discussing Netflix original series this week. We decided to do this topic because my favorite show on Netflix, Dark, is coming back with the final season, season 3, that's releasing on June 27th, 2020, which I'll explain a little bit later why that's important to the show, because Ryan has not seen that show, and I'll explain what the whole backstory behind that is. So that'll be fun to explain to Ryan. And Ryan's favorite show, Umbrella Academy, just released their a new trailer. And Ryan, I think you said you saw that trailer and you wanted to give a few impressions on that as well this episode.
Absolutely, yeah. So Umbrella Academy Season 2 coming out July 31st.
Excellent.
Jumping the gun a little bit here. You heard Dom's top of the list for Netflix original series is the show Dark. Mine would definitely be the Umbrella Academy. Not too much given away in the it's more of a teaser than a trailer, I would say, for the upcoming season of the Umbrella Academy. However, some photography principal photography from the filming of season 2 has also been released. Some exciting things to talk about, especially for anyone who followed the comics, the Umbrella Academy. Just give some ideas of what's to come in season 2, what storylines will be followed. Really excited for that and to talk about that.
Awesome. Yeah, I probably should check that out because I'm a pretty big comic book fan, and there's other shows I've been interested in watching, so that one's definitely on my list. And that leads me into the next point I'd like to make this episode. So we're going to be just spitting out a few. I know Ryan has only seen maybe a handful of different Netflix series, but I personally have seen quite a few. So I'm going to be spitting out a bunch of what I want to call recommendations. So some good stuff. I'm going to give scores with each show that I kind of just throw out. I'm not going to give in-depth explanations or thoughts. I'm just going to tell you whether I think it's worth a watch, based on my score. Me and Ryan are big fans of handing out number scores for everything, and we think you guys are enjoying us giving out number scores to all of the stuff we watch. So we're going to continue doing that, and I'll be giving a lot of number scores out. So make sure you keep your ears open for those, and maybe we'll take some recommendations from you guys. Please be sure to leave some down in the comments, because me and Ryan, there's over 150 Netflix original series. No way we could ever possibly watch all of those, but there are some that are better than others, as with a lot of movies and other TV shows. So we'd be happy to take recommendations from you guys down below in the comments. So Ryan, I know that you only have a few shows to talk about, but let's start with one that we have both seen on Netflix, one that we both have very different opinions of. I'm 100%, I'm in the majority on this one, and you're the minority.
Definitely.
So take it away. Let's get your side of what you think Stranger Things is all about.
Yeah, so Stranger Things, a very popular Netflix original series now, 3 seasons deep. I'm sure season 4 is coming. I don't think there's been a release date yet. But
Not
season
yet,
4,
but season 4 did release a trailer, Ryan, and it revealed a few things in there, but we won't go into that right now.
yeah. So I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I've watched every episode of Stranger Things.
Me as well.
I'm invested in the characters. I'm invested in the story. I'm not going to stop watching by any means.
Okay. Uh-oh.
All right. So yeah, with Stranger Things, I am definitely, I'll start off by saying this, invested in the story, invested in the characters. I'm not going to stop watching. I enjoy the show. It's definitely an enjoyable show. Now, I do have some problems with this show. The show is made in vein of some of the great 1980s sci-fi supernatural movies, I should say. Spielberg comes to mind with E.T., Close Encounters, amongst others. Now, those films all took place during the 1980s, and they were filmed in the 1980s. They were things that people could fear actually happening. Now, here's my problem with Stranger Things. This film captures a true fear and essence, I would say, of the happenings during the Cold War. Here's the problem: the generation that's watching it, I don't think understands that fear. We don't understand the fear of the commies and what their next weapon of mass destruction is. This film would have been, or this series would have been incredible in the 1980s. And I understand it wouldn't have had the CGI, the graphics that it has to offer now, but my problem is the disconnect there. None of this truly happened. Small town Indiana, you've got to assume that if some of this happened, at least some of it would have been documented. The fact that it doesn't really hurts the show. For me, I understand, suspension of belief, and that's something I struggle with. But to me, there's a loss of connect there, that this show takes place in the 1980s. We're here 30 years later. It didn't happen. None of this happened. So, I mean, that's my problem with it. It's still a good show. Definitely. I enjoy it. I'll say it's even, a great show, or great is 8. I'm sorry. So a good show. I give it a 7 out of 10, maybe even a 7.5 out of 10. Love some of the characters, love the story arc. I mean, definitely a movie of, or a series, I should say, of coming of age that just about anyone can connect to. So a definitely enjoyable show. 7.5 out of 10. Those are my personal flaws with it, but it's still an enjoyable show for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more there. Except, dude, you don't understand, man. It's science fiction, bro. It doesn't have to happen. Do you think this stuff with ET happened for real? Wouldn't they have documented that there was a alien that came to Earth and the
Bottom
boy
line,
was best friends with it?
it could have taken place in the 1980s. The film was made in the 1980s and took place in the 1980s. This film is 30, or this series, I should say, is 30 years in the past.
I don't.
That's my problem with it. I know,
I don't get how that's relevant at all. I don't.
I,
I'm gonna
I
stick with that.
understand. I
Yeah.
know. It's the show. A lot of the things that happen in the show outside of the supernatural are believable stories. Are coming of age stories of
Yeah.
kids in small town Americana. Hawkins, Indiana, of course, not a believable place. And I just want, if we're going to keep that realistic, I want everything around the show to be realistic. I know it's nitpicking. It's how I am when I watch shows. If I'm going to spend time in a show, I'm going to nitpick and make sure it's something I really enjoy. So those are my flaws. I'm very hard pressed to give something higher than like an 8.5 out of 10. I give this a 7.5 out of 10, which is still a very high score for me, I would say.
Yeah, and I was actually thinking about that earlier today. I'm thinking, as long as it's a 7, that I feel like, that's an above average experience you had. It's
Yeah,
not saying like, it's not a waste of time at all. It's something you enjoy. So maybe,
absolutely.
but
Yeah.
maybe like when it comes to me, I really, really enjoyed this show. I think it's an amazing show. I give it a 9 out of 10. I had a great time watching it. Like you said, the characters, the story, all very likable to me. Um, I'm gonna go by each season what I thought of it. Season 1, I thought it was great. It was the first time I had seen something like that on Netflix. It was a phenomenon. Everybody was watching it. Everybody was talking about it. It was absolutely fantastic. Watched it with my mom. Season 1 was amazing. I love that first season. If I were to give it a score, I'd probably give it a 9. Season 2. One thing on season 1. Some of the stuff with like Nancy Wheeler and her storylines, they're the weakest in the show, I think. And the stuff
Agreed. The whole
with her,
Steve Harrington love triangle, Steve Harrington, Nancy Wheeler,
let's
Jonathan Byers love triangle.
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just as a whole for the show, I don't think Nancy is that great of a character. She's excellent actress, excellent acting in the show. I just think the writing for her could be a little bit better. But and her and Jonathan's storyline, I'm going to go into season 2 now. Her and Jonathan's storyline in season 2, it felt like, man, can we get back to the main action? Every time they cut back to
Fair.
them, it just was not as good. So season 2, I'd probably go about what you said, 7.5. I did
Okay.
not think season 2 was as great, and the standalone episode where it was just all about Eleven and her journey, the kind of, they call it a bottle episode.
Mm-hmm.
It was a well-made episode, but I understand the criticism behind it. It did feel like a deviation from the main storyline.
Yes.
But there are some great moments, some really cool moments in season 2. But yeah, 7.5 for season 2. And one highlight of season 2, I do want to point out, um, Steve Harrington gets better and better each season. he is a more and more interesting character for me each season. Season one, he's pretty much the bad guy, don't like him that much. And then season two, he starts to kind of become this almost, you want to say, like babysitter mom figure to Dustin, right? And
Absolutely, yeah.
I love that relationship they build over season two, and it becomes full focus in season three, which brings you right into season three. I loved season three. I'm going to give it the same score as season one, a 9 out of 10. I love season three, and overall, that just brings me to a 9 out of 10 for Stranger Things. All
Okay.
the kid actors in this show are amazing. Millie Bobby Brown is fantastic in this show, as well as the guy that plays Hopper. I can't remember his name at the moment, though. I feel like
You
I should.
keep going. I'll get
Okay.
the name for you. You keep going on your point there.
Sounds good. Yeah. So yeah, he's also as amazing as Hopper, and Winona Ryder making a return to the screen.
Hmm.
She's excellent, especially in season one. She's excellent. Season two and three, she's just carrying out everything she does. And as far as season three goes, I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but I was satisfied with the way they ended it. I felt that the twists that they added in were unexpected, and there was a very emotional pull at the end with someone reading a note. I will say that got me very, very emotional moment for me. Did you get his name, Ryan?
Yes. So Jim Hopper, played by David Harbour.
David Harbour. Yeah, he's an excellent actor. He's not great in the new Hellboy, but he is great in Stranger Things. So yeah, that's our bit on Stranger Things. Anything last points you'd like to add, Ryan, or you want to move on?
Yeah, I think definitely, like I said, the show is really well acted. Winona Ryder definitely does an amazing job in season one. We really, feel for her as this person, who's lost her son, but is thought of as the town crazy, because they found the body. So I really think in season one, Winona Ryder stole the show.
Absolutely.
Special. One more time. Special shout out here. I am a huge fan of, and I'm gonna get his name here. I'm probably doing this way wrong. Gaten Matrazo as Dustin. I think he is incredible in this show.
Yeah,
Definitely steals the show for me. My favorite character personally. So I think
me
he's
too.
he's great in this show. Yeah, I think there you could sort of break this show into three different generations of characters, and definitely the weakest is our central middle age group. With you have Nancy Wheeler, Jonathan Byers, Steve Harrington. I like it a little bit more, and I'm blanking on his name here. I'm sure you can
Yeah, go
help me
ahead.
out with this. Billy, right?
Billy. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's excellent. Yeah,
I think he is definitely the strongest in that era, but or in that age group of characters. But I think the younger group are four main characters, and then 11,
played
and
by Dacre Montgomery.
there we go. Yep. And then when we get to Winona Ryder and David Harbour as Hopper and Byers, I think the chemistry on screen is great. So
Yeah,
that's what I like to add. Very well acted show. Like I said, I got some problems with the storyline, but the performances put on are fantastic and totally kept me bought in. Like I said, still looking forward to season 4. So definitely great things to say about the show for those of you who are big sci-fi fans who haven't watched it yet. I know there are very few out there who haven't watched it. I think though, moving on from Stranger Things, we do have one other show that we have in common, and
exactly what I was
I
thinking. Yeah,
I know Dom sort of took the lead on Stranger Things. He was the one, as well as my girlfriend Caitlin, who got me to watch it. They both watched it as it came out. I watched it a lot later, watched it all together, season 1 through 3, straight through. This one I sort of found first, stumbled across, showed it over to Dom. I think we both really liked it, and once again, one that probably everyone's seen now, or just about everyone. And that show would be the masterpiece Tiger King. Uh,
a
I
masterpiece.
I'm gonna come out of the gates and say masterpiece. I guess I can't say a masterpiece. I think it's a masterpiece because of COVID, but
What's
I
your
will give it a
score? What's
9 out of 10. So it is an
respectable?
excellent show. Uh, didn't think it would hold my interest at all. Watching, sort of just the Netflix teaser about it. Man, oh man, did this show blow my socks off.
Yeah,
Totally invested in all of the characters. immediately, as I'm sure everyone who watched it did, develop, which character I was going to back, who truly was the villain. But I think that's the amazing thing about this show is, based off of what your thoughts are, you can see who is a villain from a different light. I mean, I think coming full circle, I think it's amazing they added that final, I believe it's the 8th episode hosted by Joel Edgerton, the Tiger King and I, that's a post show where they interview all the other characters and you see what everyone has to say about each other, because it's just raw, real TV. And you don't, at least for us growing up in California, I don't think we expect to see people like this that are this crazy. And we don't grow up in, or we didn't grow up in backwoods Oklahoma. But I was really entertained by this show. I think timed it out perfectly with COVID to get the viewership up and get the names up. But I mean, Joe Exotic, our main character, and he's just an entertainer. Whether you love him or you hate him, he's hard to look away from when he's on the screen. So, like I said, I can gush about Tiger King all day long. 9 out of 10. Throw it over to you, Dom, and your thoughts on Tiger King.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you kind of talked me into watching this one. I did not have an interest in watching it, but I mean, I saw everybody talking about it, much like Stranger Things. Everybody was getting into it. Saw a lot of people talking about it on Twitter. Saw a big rage about it on other places on the internet, on social media. And once you saw it, Ryan, I was like, all right, if my buddy's gonna recommend this to me, I gotta check it out. I threw it on, not expecting to watch more than one episode, and the one thing that is the best part about the show is you have to keep watching. You just have to keep watching. After watching that first episode, I went, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing! I have to see this. I have to see this through." Um, Episode to episode, they end it perfectly, and one of my highest praises is, say what you will about the controversy. Maybe there's a little controversy behind the screen as far as what the intent was they were telling, who the people were interviewing, but there's always that with documentaries. Um, the guy that directed this did an excellent job. Fantastic amount of research, fantastic amount of work put into it, and the part that I found most interesting about the show is that they kind of muddy the waters a little bit. They don't know, you don't really necessarily know who you want to root for throughout the show. You don't know if you want to. Joe Exotic's the main character, so you're naturally drawn to him. But then again, you're seeing these other guys like Doc Sumtel, and he's creepy and stuff too, but he's a professional as well. And then Carol Baskin, she seems like the most wholesome of all of them, but then they bring up that whole episode with her husband, which is my favorite episode in the whole show. When they
absolutely. I think we can agree on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Carol Baskin episode is incredible. Really, the characters in this show, as a documentary, you have filmmakers who weave these incredible characters and television series creators. But to see these characters, these are people in real life. I mean, before Tiger King was a thing, Joe Exotic, Carol Baskin, Doc Antle, real people. Hard to believe
Doc
because
Antle,
they are some of the most intriguing characters on screen. So pretty amazing there. I will say, yeah, I love Joe Exotic personally. Almost heartbreaking that final episode to find out that he truly is kind of a scumbag. Of at least those three, I would say Exotic's my favorite, but really it's the lesser of the three evils. I think that's what this show, why it muddies the water, because it gives you a lot to dislike about every character, and it sort of has you find your moral compass on who is in the right. But really, yeah, love Tiger King. Like I said, I think it may have lucked out with some timing in getting the viewership. I don't know that I would have ever watched it if I wasn't stuck in the house sheltering in place, but
I agree.
All the more power to it. Great show, definitely worth a watch. 9 out of 10 for me. Did you give your score, Dom?
I didn't get a chance to give my score yet, so yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give this one an 8. I was just checking on my phone to see what I gave it. I'm gonna give it an 8. The reason I gave it an 8 and not a 9 like you, Ryan, is I did think there was a few episodes that dragged for the most part and then ended strong. There's a few episodes. Most of the stuff with Doc Antle, he was a great character, but it was interesting to watch. But I think that it did drag a little bit, and I want to say around episode 3. And then I think the Carol Baskin episode was right after that one, and that picked it up right away. So yeah, that's my score, 8 out of 10. But I do want to give one last point, and I want to tag on a recommendation for you, Ryan, and our viewers as well. I know you're a huge fan of documentaries, so one thing that this documentary does well is that you have to see it to believe it. If someone told you this description of what the show was about and what happened, you would say, "There's no way that's real," but it actually happened. It's actually real, and that's something that I also like about this other show, which I would give it I like it a little bit more than Tiger King. I'm just trying to remember the name. Okay, yeah, I have it right here. Netflix documentary as well, a Netflix original documentary called Wild Wild Country. It's an excellent documentary, one you have to see to believe. Absolutely fantastic directing, even better directing than Tiger King, I think. And once again, there's lots of crazy stuff that happens, and each episode you go, oh my God, I got to know what happens in the next episode. And it's about 6 episodes, I think. And me and my dad watched together, and we still talk about it to this day. And we watched it about a year and a half ago. So it's an excellent documentary. We would recommend Wild Wild Country. I'd give it an 8.5, just half point higher than Tiger King. So that's our documentary centerpiece. Do you want to also mention another documentary you have waiting on your list, Ryan?
I actually do. So I have a couple of documentaries. I'm a big true crime fan, and I think Netflix does a great job with a couple of their true crime documentaries. So I'm just going to call out a few. Couple of them. One of them I give a score a little bit below. Tiger King, one a little bit above. So I'll start with the one that I have below Tiger King. This one was called the Ted Bundy tapes. So this came out right around the same time as Extremely Evil, Shockingly Wicked and Vile, I believe is the name of the dramatization. What was that?
With Zac Efron.
With Zac Efron, yes. So the dramatization of the Ted Bundy killings and the Ted Bundy story. So the Ted Bundy tapes then came out right around the same time. So the actual name of the show is Conversations with a Killer, the Ted Bundy tapes. And what this show is, this show features essentially a journalist who went in with Ted Bundy throughout his last few years of life on death row and got to know about him and recorded his conversation. So this show is people speaking about Ted Bundy and, mixed with photos and video history of him, then couple back and you have the actual interviews, you have the actual voice of Ted Bundy explaining these different parts of his life. I found it very, very intriguing to hear. I've always found the idea of these serial killers. I mean, I want to know their mental state, because for someone to not be able to distinguish that taking someone's life is wrong is truly incredible, unfathomable to me. And so to hear, inside the workings of his mind, I thought was an awesome idea. The show was a bit slow at points, so this is why I give it just a half a point below Tiger King. But it was very enjoyable. 8.5 out of 10. Definitely learned a lot more about Ted Bundy, especially after watching the dramatization, also done by Netflix, but it was a film, so I didn't include it in this list. But definitely enjoyable. The other was the subject matter was Aaron Hernandez. So I'm a big sports guy. I lived and remember living through the whole Aaron Hernandez murder of Odin Lloyd. It was something that was just so unbelievable at the time. I personally was not alive during O.J. Simpson and everything that went on around the O.J. Simpson cases. So this was like my O.J. Simpson. Aaron Hernandez was one of the most incredible tight ends I had ever seen play the game, and really enjoyed watching him play for the Patriots. And to see sort of the superstar, and watch his descent, and then to hear it once again, I think it's really incredible to hear these people word of mouth. What happened was incredible. This one, hands down, 9.5 out of 10, maybe even a 10 out of 10. Incredible. Really, really would recommend. Football fans, non-football fans, you remember it or not, hearing about Aaron Hernandez and the kind of guy he was and how someone like that almost slipped through the cracks, how, everyone thought, oh, this is this upstanding, came out of a tough neighborhood in Connecticut, was able to work his way into the NFL, and just, how he sort of slipped through the cracks, that, there were signs that this guy was a violent individual and an unstable individual, but just sort of was passed on over and over until he did the unthinkable. Was just really, really an incredible show. And like I said, pertinent sort of to my life. I lived through it, and then just seeing sort of an inside look. So let me get the exact name of the Aaron Hernandez documentary here. But
it's like inside the mind of a killer.
That's, yes. Like that, yeah. The mind, there we go. The killer inside the mind of Aaron Hernandez.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that sounds like one I'd also be interested in too, Ryan, as well, because I remember watching Aaron Hernandez play as well. So, yeah, great recommendation there. So let me just guide you a little bit, Ryan. So, I want to know, and I'm sure the fans want to know as well. What's your top 3 Netflix shows? Do you have a top 3, or do you just want to give your top?
I definitely have a top 3, and 2 of them have already been mentioned already. Number 3 would definitely be Tiger King.
Okay.
Big fan of that. And number 2 would definitely be Killer Inside, the Aaron Hernandez, Inside the Mind of Aaron Hernandez. Just 2 things that I could not look away from the screen. So those are my top 2, definitely.
Okay.
Top of my list, however, and I alluded to it earlier in the episode, has to be The Umbrella Academy. This show blew my mind. Takes away everything that you expect from a superhero show and just creates this incredible world. Big shout out to Gerard Way. Yes, Gerard Way from My Chemical Romance, who was the author of these comics after his career with My Chemical Romance. And, oh, man, are these incredible. Nothing like you've ever seen. Forget about the Marvel or the DC, traditional storytelling of a hero. Completely different. This drops you in this group of children superheroes about 15 years past their prime, and how they've split. They're all screwed up because, their father, quote unquote, adopted father, was there to raise them as heroes, and they're, just how they come back together to once again save the world. And some of the twists, without spoiling it, these are some of the most original twists and turns I've ever seen on a TV screen. Once again, huge shout out to Gerard Way for dreaming this up in the first place and creating the comics. He created 3 separate volumes of the Umbrella Academy: Apocalypse, Dallas, and Hotel Oblivion, as well as a few standalone Umbrella Academy, just 1-2 page comics through Dark Horse Comics. Go ahead.
Are those DC or Marvel? I don't know.
They are Dark Horse Comics. They are neither.
Neither. Okay.
Yeah. So Dark Horse Comics. The closest I could compare it to is maybe their backstory is children, very X-Men-esque. They're sort of in this academy. I was going to say,
I think they are Marvel because I think they're part of the X-Men franchise.
I'm not sure about that. Like I said, I'm pretty sure they're Dark Horse Comics. We can definitely look that up, but
I'll look it up right now. Keep going.
Yeah. Either way, like I said, some of the twists in this are amazing. I think the acting is amazing, and I mean, I really don't know what to say about this except for I am so juiced for season 2. They just released some of the photography, as we had mentioned, from season 2. Looks like after season 1 followed primarily Apocalypse, that season 2 is going to go with the Dallas storyline, which makes sense with where Apocalypse ended and where season 1 ended. There were a lot of elements in season 1 that were taken from Dallas, so there may be some new things as well, but there are some incredible performances. Once again, I think the acting is top notch in this. Of course, the largest name actor in this show is Ellen Page, playing Vanya, She's sort of the forgotten member of the academy. She doesn't have any powers, but there's a huge twist with her at the end. So a lot of people didn't like her right at the beginning because she's kind of, they're like, oh, she's a useless character. She has no powers. Right at the beginning, the rest of the academy hates her because she sort of wrote an expose book about them. But there's a big twist with her. And then my favorite character in this film, Klaus Hargreaves, or the Seance, played by Robert Sheehan. Incredible acting. He steals the show. He's got PTSD, and his power is he can speak with the dead and has telekinesis. He's incredible in this film, and he's sort of this drug addict tweaker, trying to push his limits, how close to death he can get because he has so much experience with death. His role in this and his acting, Robert Sheehan, is incredible. I mean, not to take away from any of our other characters in it. All I can say is give this one a shot. There is so much going on in this series. I mean, everything from action, drama, romance, comedy. I mean, they have multiple times in the show where they do full on, and this is a little bit into the teaser as well, just full on dance breaks. The entire cast will just play music and full on like zoom out on the mansion, everyone in a different room dancing. It unlike anything I've ever seen. Incredible. So excited for season 2. July 31st could not come faster.
Right on, dude. I don't know. Did you give a score to this one? Is it
10 out of 10. 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10. Without a doubt, the best Netflix original series I've ever seen. My second favorite original series of any of these streaming services that have been coming out right now. Definitely. Truly incredible.
Don't give away the top of the list of your favorite all time. That's for a different episode, bro. Way in the future, we're gonna try to cover all the streaming services eventually. But I wanted to start with Netflix because it felt more immediate. My favorite show is coming out soon. Your new favorite show is coming out soon. So, yeah. Awesome. So Ryan gave his top 3, and now I just want to go through mine real quick, Ryan. And I have a lot of recommendations here as well, but I'll save those after my list. While we wrap up the show, I'll just breeze through them real quick. And then I want to just kind of try to recommend some stuff I think you would like, Ryan, because I do know what kind of stuff you like as well. And like we said before in the last episode, Ryan's a huge comedy fan. I have a couple comedies. I mean, I think this could be an interesting discussion point, maybe. I'm a fan of dark comedy, Ryan. I know that you like the kind of Tarantino-esque dark comedy as well. And I do have a couple dark comedies that I'd like to recommend. But so let me move into my list, and then we'll go more into that when I touch on those dark comedies that I really think you should check out, Ryan. So this is for the audience. I got to tell you guys my favorite top 3 Netflix shows. I'm going to start with number 3. Maybe it's because me and Ryan are huge comic fans, but we both have comic book shows on our list, and I'm absolutely appalled that Ryan has never seen this show. It's none other than, I'm gonna pull out, dude. I'm gonna flex on you real quick. Daredevil, bro, and this is Born Again, the best Daredevil comic, number 2 comic of all time, best I've ever read. Only second to Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, but they're both written by Frank Miller. The best comic books I've ever read in my entire life. Some of the most emotional, visceral storytelling I've ever seen. It's comic books, but to me, the writing in it is the equivalent of reading poetry. It's absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to keep this one out while I talk about Daredevil. Daredevil's number 3 on my list. I'm going to give Daredevil a 9.5 out of 10. I can't say enough about this show. Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock. He is freaking incredible playing a blind lawyer. He's not really blind, but he makes it completely believable. You believe that he's actually a blind man in this series. Some of the best acting I've ever seen. Deborah Ann Wall as Karen Page. She's excellent as Karen Page in this show. A lot of people hate on her. She's an excellent actress, and I'm sad that she can't find any other shows since Daredevil's been canceled, but she's awesome. I really hope that she can find another show to get onto because she's awesome in Daredevil. And the third member of the kind of core characters there is Foggy. Foggy Nelson, he's there's a few episodes where you feel like he's just there to tell to halt our main character from things he wants to do. But I do have to say, as the seasons went on, he got better and more interesting. And but he's the comedic character. He's the comedy relief. He's pretty great as the comedy relief. But when he tries to go too much into halting our character from trying to complete his mission, that's when it kind of hinders a little bit. So I'm going to go through each season, just give a score real quick. Season 1, Daredevil, revolutionary comic book television making for one reason. Vincent D'Onofrio, he's one of the best comic book villains I've ever seen. He's pretty much up there with Heath Ledger as the Joker for me, up there with Thanos as well, and Michael B. Jordan as well. But
there's a serious villain you're missing there. Sidebar here, but there's a serious villain you're missing there. And I know we've discussed this as one of the greatest on-screen villains.
Loki? You talking about Loki? Who are you talking about?
Willem Dafoe is the Green Goblin.
You're right. You're right. But
I would put him up there with Heath Ledger. So I'm excited to hear more and hopefully see more of this Kingpin. Is Vincent D'Onofrio, you said? The actor?
He's excellent as Kingpin. And we'll have to make a list of our best, our favorite comic book villains at some point, because that would be pretty cool to do. So, although I do have to say, as far as Willem Dafoe goes, you haven't seen Spider-Man 2, Ryan. You have to watch Spider-Man 2. Alfred Molina as Dr. Octopus, even better than Willem Dafoe, I think. But we'll save that for our Spider-Man episode. So back to Daredevil. Season 1, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. It was a revolutionary film or series. Lots of great character work there. One of the best villains I'd seen on TV. Heartbreaking story behind the Kingpin. Excellent action scenes, but there was only sprinklets of action throughout the show, filled in with a lot of drama. So the pacing did suffer at some points some episodes did not focus on action, and that was one thing I had wrong with that season. Season 2 was not as good as season 1, a little disappointing for me. The first 4-ish episodes of season 2 made me think that I was going to be watching the greatest season of television I'd ever seen, because the Punisher gets introduced in season 2, and some of the stuff he says in these episodes, the Punisher is absolutely incredible. But after that, they go on this kind of side mission with they're trying to hunt down these ninjas and stuff like that, and the Hand is what they're called. They're trying to go after the Hand, and that storyline with Elektra, not my cup of tea, but it did finish off strong. So I'm going to give season 2 of Daredevil an 8 out of 10. But then I got to go right into it because I know I'm taking too much time on Daredevil. But season 3 was based on this comic book, Daredevil Born Again. Season 3 of Daredevil is one of the best television seasons I've ever seen in my life. The first episode starts off slow, but it needs to because there's been a lot of time between the end of season 2 and 3 because Defenders happened in between. So let me just say that. I've seen Defenders, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage. I probably give all 3 of those an 8 out of 10. They weren't as great as Daredevil for me. But especially Defenders, it felt like it faltered a little bit. So that's just my point on those. I've seen all 3 of those. Luke Cage is the weakest out of those. Oh, and I mean, Iron Fist, I haven't even watched because I couldn't watch the first episode. It was terrible. And The Punisher, I need to get into it. My friend has recommended it to me, but I have not seen The Punisher. So that's my point on that. And then I want to say season 3 of Daredevil. There's a point in season 3 of Daredevil where you realize that you are watching one of the most spectacular action sequences you've ever seen in your life. And my jaw hit the floor. And I'm saying it because in every season they have a one-take sequence, Ryan. Do you know what I'm talking about? When they don't cut the camera and they just follow the character around. They do that with action scenes in the show. They did it in season 1, which was excellent. Season 2 was awesome. Season 3, Matt Murdock is in a prison. He's not wearing the Daredevil costume, and he's in an action scene. The 2 previous action scenes I mentioned in season 1 and 2, he was in the Daredevil costume. They could easily hide his stunt double in that Daredevil costume. In season 2, Charlie Cox is doing most of the action. He trained for this. And oh my gosh, he has to break out of this prison where all the inmates are trying to capture him. It is jaw-dropping. It's a 13-minute long shot of him just escaping this prison sequence. It's absolutely incredible. And I have to say, Bullseye shows up as one of the villains in this, and the Kingpin also returns. The interaction between those 3 characters the psychosis of Bullseye, the psychosis of Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin. Some of the deepest character work I've ever seen in my life. Season 3 gets a 10 out of 10. The finale for season 3 is so emotionally satisfying. I felt a huge weight lifted off my chest because you just feel like throughout these episodes, you have this tension inside of you. And it's finally released once Matt Murdock completes his mission. And season 3 finale is absolutely incredible storytelling. So Daredevil overall, I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10 because season 2 is pretty weak actually, but it's still good. Then I'm going to go to my second one on the list, The Haunting of Hill House. There's no way Ryan will ever watch this show. I'll say that because he's a scaredy cat. He does not watch horror, right, Ryan?
Very fair to say. Yes, absolutely.
And I got to tell you, Ryan, this is directed by my favorite horror director. His name is Mike Flanagan. He is a master when it comes to horror. He's directed some of my favorite horror movies. Most recently, he directed Doctor Sleep, which I loved, a sequel to The Shining. It was absolutely incredible. Some people hated on it. I thought it was fantastic. Mike Flanagan has created a lot of incredible films, but to me, this series where he was getting complete creative control by Netflix, it's absolutely breathtaking. It's each episode. Let me just give you a description, Brian, to see if you might be enticed to watch this, although I know you're a scaredy cat. So this follows a family, and the first episode, there's I want to say, let's see, I think there's 4 or
Jeez.
That was funny. Okay, so I want to say there's 4 children in this family. Yeah, so there's like 4 children, and the first 4 episodes, you get the backstory of each child as they grew up in this haunted house. And you see them as children growing up and dealing with the loss of their mother, and then you see them now, what they're still dealing with the fallout of everything, and including their father. And then at about episode 5, they all come together into one location because there's a funeral. I'm not going to say anything more than that because I don't want to spoil it. But episode 5 of this show, I think it's episode 5, might be episode 6, but you'll know it when you see it because the entire episode is one shot. They do not cut the entire episode. There is not one cut. And the actors have said that filming that episode specifically, it was not like acting on a TV series. It was like acting on a stage because they had to know every line. The camera moves from one spot to another. And in the corner of the camera, you can see things that you're like, is that a ghost? Is that freaking me out right now? Yeah, that's freaking me out right now. And that's all throughout the series, but in this episode, it's really cool. And the finale and the emotions, there's the character work, the acting. It's absolutely incredible. It's one of the best series of television I've ever seen. The Haunting of Hill House, there's 1 season. Season 2 is probably going to come out around Halloween this year. I can't wait for that. Season 1, Haunting of Hill House, 10 out of 10. I love The Haunting of Hill House. Mike Flanagan is a master. And the top of the list for me, which leads me into my discussion of, I kind of mentioned at the top of this show, the best show on Netflix. I know it's controversial. There's a lot of great Netflix shows out there. The best show on Netflix is not even in English, not in the English language. It's a German show called Dark. It's absolutely incredible. It's not a spoiler to say it's about time travel, and it's one of the most unique takes on time travel I have ever seen in my life. Everything is connected. The end is the beginning. These are statements they make in the show. And in season 1, there's a few twists that absolutely blow your mind. You have to sit there after the screen goes black and just think about it. And I just thought about it for hours and hours trying to put the pieces together. And it is so incredible. I've read some reviews, Ryan, and this is one of those shows that I agree with this person that wrote this. It feels like you've earned a college degree by the time you've watched the end of this show. Because it feels so awesome trying to figure everything out. The lore is incredible in this show. The acting performances are incredible. So season 1 of Dark, I would give it a 9 out of 10. I feel like the main character, his name is, well, in English you would say Jonas, but in German they call him Jonas. So I'm going to say Jonas. Jonas, he's cool in that show, but he does make a few weird decisions. He's kind of just waiting around for a little bit. And I just watched it. I've seen season 1 3 times. I just watched it recently with my dad, and there were a few episodes he said, that one was kind of slow. Not much happened in that one. So I will mark it down to a 9 out of 10 for that. But I do have to say, Season 2, I just rewatched it for the second time just to get ready for season 3. Um, oh man, season 2, one of the best seasons of television I've ever seen. I know I've said that a lot, but geez, it is absolutely incredible. There's a twist at about episode 4, or is it 5? Might be 5. That blew my mind, dude. It was so freaking awesome. And you can't say anything about it because just knowing a little tidbit about it would be a spoiler. But just know it has to do with time travel. It has to do with this little town in Germany called Winden, and everything is connected. All there's these families, and you follow their backstories, and their everything happens to do, and you travel between 3 different time periods: the present, 2019 or 2020, 1987 and 1953, and there is some more time traveling, but I don't want to say those time periods because there is an importance to the show that you might be surprised to see in that. But season 3 will air on June 27th, 2020, which in the show is the day of the apocalypse. And I love that they did that because in season 2, they're all counting down to the apocalypse, and they're counting down to June 27th, 2020. And season 3 will premiere on June 27th, 2020 in our time. So I'm very, very excited to see what happens in season 3. I'd love to give some theories, but maybe that's a separate video, or maybe I'll just leave a little podcast or Instagram video for that. But yeah, I think Dark is absolutely incredible. 10 out of 10, top of the list for me. So Ryan, I feel like I've been talking for way too long, so let me just give you some recommendations, see if you know what I'm talking about, and just let me know if you'd be interested in watching these. First of all, I know I've recommended to you before Paul Rudd in Living with Yourself. I think you'd love this show, dude. You need to check it out. It's only a few episodes. It's hilarious, but it is a dark comedy. It does get dark. It's not afraid to get dark, but it's absolutely incredible. I'd give Living with Yourself an 8.5 out of 10. That's my recommendation to you, my friend.
Yeah, I've absolutely heard a lot about Living with Yourself. The basis behind it seems very similar to one of my favorite, and I actually just rewatched it tonight, so I'm excited to talk about it. Okay. One of my favorite Rick and Morty episodes. Just knowing the plot, I know a lot about Living with Yourself. Happened that Rick and Morty episode that I watched, I think, came out right around the time of the promos of Living with Yourself. So that's why I drew the connection. So definitely something I want to watch. Plus, for those of you viewers of the show out there, know Ant-Man, probably one of my favorite characters in the MCU, and that's a big part to Paul Rudd. So definitely one worth a watch. Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. And then my second one I want to give to you is also a dark comedy, but it's funny, it's quirky, it's very strange. I was very close to putting this on the top of the list for me, at least in my top 3, but it'd probably be number 4 if I were to give a number 4. Russian Doll, a Netflix original. It's only 1 season. I'd give it a 9.5 out of 10. I love this show. It has to do with the concept of someone gets stuck in a loop where every time they die, they wake up at the same moment again and again and again and again, over and over. I know that you're not a big fan of, maybe you are. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Have you seen Blumhouse Films? One of the few comedy, or one of the few horror films that I actually enjoy, because as Dominic said, I will own up to it. I am a scaredy cat for sure. But the Happy Death Day films, Happy Death Day,
very similar
and Happy Death Day to You. It sounds very similar to that. Those were a few of some of the horror films that I actually went and saw in theaters.
Oh, wow.
Love those films. So that's something, I'd be interested in seeing, because that is very similar, it seems, to Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day to You. And Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day to You, they refer to it a lot as, Groundhog Day. Asking Groundhog Day is one of my favorite films. So definitely seems similar to that.
Mochi!
Yes, Mochi makes her first appearance, and quickly off the screen as well. As you can see, she is queen of the couch, so that is why I am sitting on the floor right now at my parents' house. Apologies for those of you out there who are watching on screen. It's a little darker, little lower quality camera. That's because everything I'm using is my parents at home for the Father's Day weekend visiting my family. So apologies there. We'll be back to our same, I don't know if we can call it high quality on my end, but same normal quality that you're used to on my traditional computer and headphones and microphone and everything next week.
Sounds good. Yeah. So let me just spit out a few recommendations, then I'll let you close out the episode, buddy. So I'm just gonna say all the series that I've watched on Netflix. It's about 16 shows, including the ones that I already discussed. But yeah, so Russian Doll, 9.5 out of 10. I think you'd love it. It gets very metaphorical at the end, very deep. There's one moment in the show that the actor that said something about himself that he had done that he realizes, absolutely heartbreaking. I love Russian Doll. Would definitely recommend you watch that, guys. And then I'm going to start with a few that I would say that aren't the best. So if I were to give a bottom of the list for the ones I've seen on Netflix, I have a huge guilty pleasure show here, Ryan, that I know you also share in the same universe as this. Chilling Adventures of Sabrina takes place in the same universe as Riverdale, which I know you're a huge fan of Riverdale. Um, for me, that's a huge guilty pleasure. Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Kiernan Shipka, dude, I have a major crush on Kiernan Shipka, bro. She is absolutely a cutie, dude. I love Kiernan Shipka. So she's played Sabrina in this show, and she's the best part of this show. It does get very hokey, very corny, very cheesy, like Riverdale. Lots of teen love, romance, and drama. So lots of that. But I love the lore of them being witches and the aspect of the devil and the aspect of hell and everything in this. Love the magic of this show. Guilty pleasure for me. I'd probably give it a 6.5, maybe a 7. Some episodes are really terrible, not very good at all, and then some are very enjoyable to me. And yeah, so let's leave it at that. Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, 6.5, maybe a 7. Um, I'm gonna go right to Lost in Space, one that you might enjoy, Ryan. It's an adventure show. It's a space show. Takes place way in the future. Remake of an old television show, Lost in Space, and it's an enjoyable experience. There's a couple seasons out there now. There's 2 seasons, I think, I want to say, and I've seen both of them, and I found both of them very enjoyable. I'd give each of those a 7.5 out of 10. Definitely worth a watch. Lost in Space. One close to my heart here, just recently came out, The Witcher. I'm a huge fan of the video game, The Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt. I haven't played Witcher 1 and 2, but I have watched a little bit of those on the YouTube. But The Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt, one of the best games I've ever played. Was excited to see Henry Cavill star as the Witcher in this show, and yeah, The Witcher, I'd probably give it a 7.5 out of 10. They mess around with time in this a little bit, jumping back and forth, and it's a little confusing. And they didn't fully go into the action that I wanted, like they do in the video game. So 7.5 out of 10, The Witcher. Um, Let me go down to one that I gave an 8, which would be the OA. Season 1 was pretty great. I very much enjoyed this. The finale let me down a little bit at the end. Season 2 of the OA was a lot better. I'd give it a higher score than season 1. But overall, I give the OA an 8 out of 10. It's an enjoyable show. Has to do with it's a very unique vision, and I do have to say that the way they ended it, they canceled it, so they couldn't give it a great ending. But the season 2 finale was a very big surprise to me. But after putting some thought into it, I'm not quite sure it worked. But it was an interesting way to end the show, even though it got canceled. So the OA, 8 out of 10. Let me just give off a couple more. Let's see. A couple 9s for me I have here. The End of the Effing World. Love that show. A 9 out of 10. Great show. It's also a dark comedy, Ryan. You'd like it a lot, but it's very, very harsh humor, I would say. It takes a lot to get into it, but if you do, I'd say season 1 and 2 are both 9 out of 10s. I love that show. It's a great experience. And then Glow, another comedy. I forgot I had so many comedies on here. You would love Glow. It's from the people that make The Orange Is the New Black. I have never seen that show. Wasn't my cup of tea, but I do like Glow because my mom was way into it. Once again, it's an 80s show, Ryan. Has to do a lot with the 80s. I know you like that time period. And it's a true realistic thing because the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, Glow, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, was a real thing, and it really happened. So
I am familiar with Glow. I've been
okay.
Both my dad and my grandfather big fans of Glow, and
It's
we're very much
awesome.
into trying to get me to watch it. Once again, up until I would say probably this COVID time, I wasn't much into the series, and I'll touch on that a little bit later as I'm closing out. But yeah, definitely one that has been highly recommended to me. So that's what I do have to say on Glow. So glad to hear just another pun intended glowing response there, or glowing rating from you.
All right, dude. Yeah, so Glow 9 out of 10. And then I have a couple more, and then I'll give it over to you, Ryan. I forgot to touch on Series of Unfortunate Events, 8.5 out of 10. I do have to put a huge asterisk on this, though. It might be a higher score later because season 3. I have not seen season 3. I need to check that out. Hopefully, I don't get spoiled on it, but I'm going to check a Series of Unfortunate Events out. Season 1 and 2, I was very pleased with, though. 8.5 out of 10. A great show.
Was not a fan.
You watched it?
The first half of season 1 was about all I made it through, and
Oh, it's
I was
so much
big
fun.
fan of the book series. Read everyone cover to cover way back in like 4th or 5th grade or something like that. Just
It's so much
couldn't, and
fun.
I loved the Tim Burton film.
That's a great film as well. Yeah.
I just couldn't get into it. I didn't like. It's Neil Patrick Harris, right?
He's awesome. I love
I
him in this
couldn't. I
show.
couldn't buy him as
Count Olaf.
Count Olaf. I was going to say Sirius Black. I don't know why there. Yes, as Count Olaf, I could not get into him as he was almost like too over the top, too quirky.
Okay.
I couldn't do it.
All right. So that's what I think about a series of unfortunate events, and Ryan as well. So that was great. We didn't know we had both seen that one.
I had totally forgotten about that one. Put
And
it
then,
way back in the back of my memory.
and then let me just check one more time. Oh, I have one more, I think. Yes, one last one. Unbelievable. I watched this with my mom and dad. It has to do. It's a very serious show. Very, very serious. Not a comedy at all. It's a crime drama. It's a kind of a detective piece, trying to solve a sexual assault. Has to do with the fallout of a rape, a sexual assault. And the acting in this is absolutely incredible. Ryan, it's Caitlin Denver, or is it Dever? I can't remember, but she's one of the main characters in Booksmart, a film I recommended to you and that you absolutely liked. She's one of those two main characters, and yeah, so she's one of the victims in this one. She does an excellent job here. The other actresses in this show also did an excellent job as well. I think Unbelievable is a great show, 100% worth a watch. 9 out of 10 for me. Sorry for the technical issues on this one, guys. I'm going to have to go ahead and close this one out myself. Ryan is having some issues with the technology. Like he said, he is at his parents' house, did not have the normal setup that he usually does. So he will have to sit the end of this one out. But I gave all my recommendations already, gave all the scores, the juicy details on what I think you guys should be checking out on Netflix. So I'll leave it for that on this week's episode of Top of the List. And I'd like to ask you guys to please leave a like, a comment, and please subscribe. The button should be somewhere around this area, here or here. Not quite sure. But, and don't forget to give me and Ryan a follow. Ryan's on Instagram is at RB underscore the underscore SID. And then my on Instagram and Twitter is Dom Gonzalez 48, DOMGONZALES 48. And I'd like to thank you guys for watching this video. It was a great one. We're going to figure out what we're going to do next week. We're thinking maybe to do Jurassic Park. We're thinking maybe getting started on some Christopher Nolan films as well, leading up to Tenet, which we will be. We're planning on having Tenet be our first movie review on the channel. Very excited to see Tenet at the end of July. That's kind of what's coming on the agenda for Top of the List. But until then, I will see you guys next week. Later.